Welcome to another episode of Purchase to Profits. I'm Seth Ferguson. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss our daily interviews with successful real estate investors. And I've put together the top 7 key market drivers I look at when analyzing a real estate property. Go to sethferguson.org to download your free copy. Our guest today started investing in single-family homes in 2012 and began transitioning into commercial real estate in 2018. He's also a real estate agent and the host of the Book Club Interview podcast. Scott Hollister is the founder of the David Wesley Real Estate Company. Scott, welcome to Purchase to Profits. It's great to have you on the show.
Seth, appreciate you coming on the show. Thank you very much. I hope we have a good interview.
Well, I know we're going to have a great interview. Anybody who has an awesome beard is always a good interview guest.
There you go. Yep. Almost got my winter one on. I had to trim it for summer.
Yeah, that's right. So, okay, well, let's dive right into things. What are you looking to do with real estate? Like, what are your real estate goals right now?
So the biggest thing for me to kind of rewind is financial freedom. So I was a teacher. And while I was teaching for about 3 to 4 years, I created 2 businesses. One was a personal training business, and then one was a real estate rental business. And I started with the house hack, bought 2 houses on one property, loved it. It paid for my mortgage, got a roommate. I'm like, this is truly the way. So it was about a 3-year pause in between before buying my next REO. And I had a couple of clients doing a 12-week program. And it was great. I loved it. Health is a passion of mine, but I wasn't getting paid unless I showed up. And then I also did this REO kind of burst strategy for the summer, and I turned it into rental after I rehabbed it. And then I was able to pull some cash out on the back end, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. That was one of my better deals. But it was interesting because the money, no matter what, was coming around the clock with the rental. And I didn't really have to show up. I could call a contractor, call a management company, but that was kind of the light bulb for me. So from that point on, it's been how, passive can I get with real estate investments to afford the life I want for my family and myself. And to me, it's just that financial freedom to goal as soon as possible.
Yeah. And do you have targets that you set for yourself? Like, do you want to own X number of units, or do you want to hit an income level from the passive income?
I think it's an income level. And then once you start factoring in, let's just say your wife, so I'm getting married, I want to be a stay-at-home mom, and you're factoring health insurance. There's $1,500 to $2,000 a month. And you're like, okay, well, that's a $40,000 a year job. So I think once you start really looking at the numbers, I think you start hitting minimum, especially since I live in Connecticut. Taxes here are really, high. So we've got to hit a very large threshold. I think I no longer look at, not like unit, because one unit here is different from a unit over there. So I think it's more of like a passive income with, good assets over time.
Yeah, for sure. And, you had mentioned that you were teaching before. What even got you started in real estate? Because, teachers, like, you got great pensions and all that stuff. I would say most people don't even kind of go to real estate if they're teaching.
Yeah, it was tough. I think the biggest thing for me was my mother was in lending for 30 years, mostly like residential, doing commercials. She had her license for a little while, but I remember driving, I think I was like 16 years old. And my mom was, oh, hey, look at that property. It's got like a little apartment loft over the garage. You can live in that. And that was kind of the kick. And then all of a sudden, I think I was in my senior year of college, and my parents lost their house. We had to go to another house, 2 weeks to move, foreclosed on, and we had to rent for a year and a half. And then during that time I graduated, and I knew with my first paycheck, I was like, nope. I was like, if I ever lose my job, I want to make sure that I'm not going to lose my house. So I had to buy something with an income approach. And the other good thing is graduating with student loan debt and purchase power with debt to income ratio, I could only get something that was very cheap, where if I got something with income to it, my purchase power went up through the roof. So that was kind of the bug, and, stepping into a landlord role and understanding what it went into it. I have contractor trade by background. So I did my first 4 or 5 rehabs, by myself. So having all that experience, I'm like, okay, I can do this. And probably 2 years ago now, left teaching full time.
Yeah. So. How did you know it was the right time to leave teaching? Like what was the big indicator for you?
Financially, it wasn't the right time. It was a huge risk. It kind of got like a kick out the door slash, okay, I think, now's right. There's never gonna be something that like hits you right in the face that thinks you're ready. And there's a couple reasons why, this story comes to mind. I was talking with a broker, probably a couple years back, and he trains, commercial real estate brokers. He tells them, you're not going to get your first paycheck for over 12 months. You figure it out. So he'd make them go out and like purchase a car or something. Well, so back to that story is, you don't know until you're like thrown in that fire. And me personally, I've always been like really scrappy and really creative and really resourceful, where worst case scenario, if I can just flip 2 houses a year, I could surpass my teaching income. So that was my goal, is okay, if I have to swing the hammer myself, I can get that done. So.
Yeah. And I think you bring up a good point. There is never a perfect time to make the leap. Like, you just have to do it and figure things out along the way.
Yeah. And that skyrocketed my education, because I left teaching. And then that fall I went to Jake and Gino's event, their first event out in Tennessee. And that was kind of my bug to more travel, more networking. And just from there, now that you have the freedom, like, oh, hey, do you want to come to, Denver for an event? Yep, sure. Fine. So I think that kind of helps too. It kind of allows you to have a little bit more freedom. So,
yeah. And what would you say is your number one challenge right now in real estate investing for yourself?
Too many options. I think my biggest thing is a lack of focus. And, I was talking with someone, our generation's we have so many options that we might, be wearing too many hats. So that's kind of my goal getting forward, is creating a business that makes money, the active part, and then also creating a business to put that into more of a passive part. And I think that's the goal, is to kind of live off that passive income while you're churning that active, that one.
Yeah. I don't think anybody's ever given that answer before. Too many options. I like it. So like, are you talking just too many different niches in real estate that you can go to, or like, what are all the options you're kind of considering right now?
Well, it's a good thing and a bad thing. When I started out, there's 3 different ways I make money right now. So the passive income through the rentals. I'm a licensed agent in Connecticut, Massachusetts, kind of helping out house hackers, the 2 to 4 unit. I love that kind of family and friend stuff. And then third is more of like a direct lender, 1 to 4 fix and flip capital. So those 3 buckets really helped me at first, but now as they start to grow each of them, it's like, I got to focus a little bit, because end up working, crazy. And, if I got 3 things, I can only kind of give part-time to each of them. So,
yeah. And I know the feeling you're talking about, because it's a little nerve-wracking cutting one out completely, because it's giving you some money in, but then, deep down inside, like, if you just focus on the one option. So it's almost like taking that leap of faith we were talking about before, and just jumping into it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, what would you like, what do you have to change about how you think about real estate in order to take one of those options and just go nuts with it and scale?
I think it's a very difficult decision, right? So you're kind of stepping away from that income of that source. Yeah. And the good thing about it is, maybe not one of those is great at that time, but the collective pool of those are. And I think the biggest thing for me is kind of taking each of those and creating a business and a system where, I'd love to get an assistant next. More, it's kind of like the Upwork right now is kind of piecing together things. But as you kind of step out of those roles, that's the next, major leap. And if you haven't done that before, there's a little bit of a risk. As we go back to talk about that, it's like, okay, you can do it. Just take it. Everything's gonna be okay. So
yeah, for sure. And I know, just speaking from a lot of the guests we have on the show, hiring that first administrator is a huge step, and things just skyrocket after that. So we'll have to have you back on in a year once you hire your assistant.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So, what sort of routines and rituals have you developed thus far that have helped make you successful?
One of my biggest things is obviously education, reading many books and trying to learn from, other people. I think Will Smith said it best is whatever you've gone through, whatever you're looking to do, there's somewhere down the line that someone's written a book about it or something that you can kind of learn. So I've always taken that philosophy being a teacher and trying to learn. So what I've created is, I haven't created, I've kind of steal from everything, but I believe first and foremost, you got to have your health, and everything should be around that because, if you can't take care of your body and your mind and things like that, you're just going to crumble and you're creating a business for no reason. So I think having exercise and eating well is my biggest thing that kind of leads into other things. Waking up early has always been a huge proponent of mine. Used to wake up at 4:00, 3:45. It kind of fluctuates a little bit now with a little bit more freedom, which can be bad, but having that routine and ritual, gratitude. Every day I wake up, I write in my journal, something I'm grateful about my wife. And I've been doing that every day since we lived together. And each year, once I have that journal complete, I give it to her.
That's cool.
And yeah, that's a good one. I think I got that one from Darren Hardy, I believe. But that's just something little, right? Like that's my biggest part of the day. If I get that, then I'm a success. Like those are little things that are going to matter. So I try to create those things. And then, Jay Papasan had a great thing with time blocking, right? If you can really focus your time. Dave Van Horn's really good about it. He'll shut his phone off for blocks of time. I'm trying to get to that point, where you can have that focused, mentality. And I think there's other three things. I go back to Darren Hardy. I think the compound effect is a really great thing where you should have three major bullet points for your day that move you towards your goals. And that's pushing away action steps and outcomes. And that's the hardest thing for me to understand is if you select an outcome as a goal, you're not going to complete it. So you might have all these outcomes every day and feel like a failure day after day, but it's more of like the task to kind of hit.
Yeah.
So
yeah, 100. And, especially in real estate, like it can feel like a grind sometimes because you're just working away so hard, but it's there at some point. And, I think actually that brings me to a question. So what is your why? Like what's the whole thing driving you right now to grow in real estate?
my father, the biggest thing for me personally was, his education. I always looked up to him and I was like, he could do anything. Like he's extremely smart, but then you look back and so he was a high school dropout. I think he dropped out freshman or sophomore year, got into automobile trade, climbed the ladder, get laid off, climb the ladder, get laid off. And each time he got laid off, we felt it at home. And then the most recent with the crash, they lost their house. So I'm like, all right, I think I just want to get to a point where in my life I can look back and say, hey, look, I did it because I believed in myself, not to prove anything. That just you kind of took it into your own life. Everybody beats to a different drummer, so I think that's important. Where you got to find what's successful to you, because success is different from every single person. But failure is the same, right? The inability to reach each other's goals. So, and that was Og Mandino. That's one of my other favorite books. So, I think that's my biggest driving force, is to provide for my family and to be a great family man, be a great husband, father, grandfather. And if I have some other job telling me I can't be at that, baseball game or whatever it is, that's the biggest motivator.
For sure. I like it. Well, let's move over to a Keystone Deal. So a deal that made a big impact on you and your business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So my first REO purchase with a hard money loan. So my mother in the last 7 or 8 years worked for a hard money lender. And that's kind of how I got into lending and truly understanding the financial aspect of it. So they gave me my first deal. No prior experience per se. So it was really hard. So I had to pay a premium, 12% and 3 points. Purchased a single family home, 3 bedroom, 1 bath, 1,100 square feet for 101,000. Had a rehab budget of 6,500. So material only. I was the contractor. That ballooned to 17. So luckily enough, as is was 145. And then after repair value was like 187. So I think I was all in for the deal for 117,000, and I was able to pull out 148. So I hit the
Nice.
walk with like a $26,000 tax-free check at the end. So that really helped, because then I took that check and put it into the business and invested in my education going forward.
Nice. And actually, like you just brought up a really important thing. You took that profit and then you put it back into the business. You didn't go out and blow it. How important do you well, because there's two things. That you did the deal and you proved to yourself that you could do it. And then you also took the profits and invested back into yourself. Is that something you would say is, a must do for people just getting going?
Yeah, I think you have to bet on yourself, because when you're starting out, you really don't have capital unless, you're gifted in some other sense, where your uncle or aunt or parents are wealthy. And I think you have to be scrappy, and you have to, every deal I've ever done, I've kind of bet the farm on, and that's good, because it puts you in a position where you have to succeed,
Yeah.
within reason. I mean, if you know your end value, the contracting part, and those are the two things that kind of can hurt you the most, you'll always be okay. I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you gotta always invest in yourself. I think Jim Rohn said it the best is, self-education will truly take you places that you can't, so.
Oh, for sure. And plus, it's all about expanding your mind. So you're seeing options that you didn't see before. I think that's the biggest impact. Even interviewing guests like you and everybody else that's come on the show, you just get so many different, viewpoints of real estate and how because, I could be talking with somebody who runs $1.5 billion company. The only difference between he and I are just the way we think about real estate and think about business. Like, they're not necessarily more talented or better looking or anything like that. So I think that's huge. How did you source the deal? Was it through a broker? Did you go direct to seller?
That was the MLS deal.
Oh, cool.
Back then you could find them a little bit easier,
Yeah.
that they weren't as bid up. But the biggest key for me was, so going to the lender that was kind of a right-hand man who had the experience, who's flipped before, and who had the broker connections. And I think that was the biggest thing, is teaming up with a good REO agent in the beginning, which is going to be hard, because as an agent myself, to take on a client that's brand new and to get paid for REOs, the math equation doesn't work when it comes to dollars per hour. There might be other ways you could do that, but if you can get with someone that really knows what they're talking about, because their experience is like through the roof, like, oh, that has asbestos, or that's a crumbling foundation, or, that roof's got 5 years left on it. Like, having someone who's experienced to walk through a property with you, a good second set of eyes, is not going to let you stumble when you're too green to start, which
Yeah.
I was and still am. It's great,
Yeah.
but
And would you say that that's another keystone in terms of just partnering or just working with somebody who's been there before?
yeah, I think that's a great way to start. I see a lot of people, going up to a successful investor and be like, is there any way I can help you? Anything in your business? Is there anything you're working on right now? And, just offer that for free. One of my biggest things is paying people for their time. And that, whatever that cost is, you might be paying $100 to $350 an hour for that person, especially some successful authors. But whatever comes from that $350 is definitely going to pay back,
Yeah.
10. So I think appreciating someone's time who's been where you want to go is a huge factor.
Yeah, 100%. Actually, that there's a really great quote I like. It's if you think hiring a professional is expensive, just wait until you hire an amateur.
Yeah. Yep.
It's the
You got to
same.
do it again. Yep.
So, how has getting started in real estate, like you were able to leave your job, like teaching, now you're doing real estate, like what other impacts has real estate had on your life?
Um, I think it's the thing, the most I hate to keep coming back to the financial. I mean, the freedom is a huge part, but I mean, obviously financially, that just takes care of the base necessities of our life. If we can kind of get those out of the way, becomes a little bit comfortable. I think the biggest thing is to see your net worth shoot up more so than, let's just say, my entire teaching career. Like there's the things you can do in real estate with, I'm college educated, but I wasn't that smart when it came to high school. Like I was always in remedial reading classes and special education. Like I'm not that smart. I read something and I apply it. So I try, like, that's the coolest thing about real estate. I think anybody can do it and it's within grasp, and, there's so much good education out there. So,
yeah. And, looking ahead 10 years from now, where do you see yourself in a decade?
I'd like to see, our dream home. It's kind of our thing that we're doing this year. Next year we're building. So I'd like to see that finished. I'd like to see a business, that kind of takes care of itself if I'm not in the office or not. Very minimal, 10 to 20 hours a week. I don't think there's ever truly a point in life where you can be, 100% hands off. I mean, there's ways, but, just having the passion of being in that business, I like that too. But things happen really quick. Yeah. So I could put a goal up there, but odds are it's going to go left and go right, and it's going to veer all the way there. So
yeah, for sure. Well, that's the highway to success. It's a big squiggly line, right? So
yep.
Yeah, that's awesome. So Scott, if somebody's looking to reach out, can you talk to us about your book? Because we were chatting a little bit about that before we started.
Yeah, the book club. So I host the book club interview where I interview authors, business, real estate, and life. It's been a passion project of mine. I got to be more consistent with it. The other thing is, I'd love to become an author one day. So always kind of playing around with those things. But it's a great resource, right? Because we got to connect, and if we didn't have those, social media platforms, then and that's a great thing about real estate is you'll have friends across the world, and it's pretty cool to connect. So
for sure. And like I said, we'll have to have you back on next year when you hire your admin, and then when your book comes out. So we'll do a big super interview.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So if somebody's looking to reach out, learn more about what you're doing, where can they find you online?
Yeah, best place is probably Facebook or LinkedIn. Scott Hollister, real simple to Google, find, book club interview, podcast. And those are probably two best ways.
That's perfect. Perfect. And then we can also just Google your podcast as well.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So Scott, just want to say thanks so much for taking the time today and sharing those awesome tips with us.
You got it, Seth. Thank you.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. And to you, our viewers, I wish you well on your journey from purchase to profits. See you next time.